Hello students, today we shall see the next point of our chapter process management, that is scheduling algorithms. We have seen in the last lecture what is scheduling. Now we are going to see scheduling algorithms. CPU scheduling deals with the problem of deciding which of the processes in the ready queue is to be allocated the CPU. There will be many processes in the ready queue. We have to decide which process from the ready queue is to be selected and given to the CPU for execution. There are many different CPU scheduling algorithms. A process scheduler schedules different processes to be assigned to the CPU based on a particular scheduling algorithm. So depending on which algorithm we are going to select, the scheduler will select the process from the ready queue and assign it to the CPU for execution. These algorithms are either non-preemptive or preemptive. The scheduling algorithms which we are going to discuss are of two types. They are either non-preemptive or preemptive. Now we shall see what are preemptive scheduling algorithms. The tasks are mostly assigned with their priorities. Sometimes it is important to run a task with a higher priority before another lower priority task, even if the lower priority task is still running. So when there are two processes, one process will have the higher priority and the other process will have the lower priority. In this case, the CPU will execute the process having higher priority. The lower priority task holds for some time and resumes when the higher priority task finishes its execution. So suppose now a lower priority process is being executed by the CPU, and at the same time a higher priority process arrives. In this case, the lower priority process will have to stop its execution and the CPU will take the higher priority process for execution. So such type of algorithms where one process has to stop its execution and the other process with higher priority will be taken for execution. Such type of algorithms are known as preemptive scheduling algorithms. Next, the second type of scheduling algorithms are non-preemptive scheduling algorithms. The CPU has been allocated to a specific process. The process that keeps the CPU busy will release the CPU either by switching context or terminating. So in such type of scheduling algorithms, even if a higher priority process comes, the CPU will not be removed or the CPU will not be allocated to the higher priority process unless and until the currently running process finishes its execution. Once a process enters the running state, it cannot be preempted until it completes its allocated time. So now there are different types of process scheduling algorithms. First come first serve, shortest job first, priority scheduling, round robin scheduling, multiple level queue scheduling. We shall see the first type of scheduling algorithm, that is first come first serve, which is also known as FCFS. Simplest scheduling algorithm that schedules according to arrival times of processes. So in this scheduling algorithm, the process will be allocated to the CPU as and when it comes. So the process which comes first in the queue will be allocated the CPU first, and so on. First come first serve scheduling algorithm states that the process that requests the CPU first is allocated the CPU first. It is implemented by using the FIFO queue. In the last year you have learnt about first in first out queue. So to implement the FCFS, that is first come first serve scheduling algorithm, we are going to use FIFO data structure. When a process enters the ready queue, its PCB is linked onto the tail of the queue. So the process control block of that process will be added at the end of the queue. When the CPU is free, it is allocated to the process at the head of the queue. So when the CPU will be free, the process which is at the starting of the queue, that is the head of the queue, will be allocated to the CPU. The running process is then removed from the queue. First come first serve is a non-preemptive scheduling algorithm. That means unless and until a process finishes its execution, the CPU will not be allocated to another process. It is easy to implement and use. This method is poor in performance and the general wait time is quite high. Next, we'll take an example to show the working of the FCFS or first come first serve. Consider the following set of processes that arrive at time 0 with the length of the CPU burst time given in milliseconds. Now what is CPU burst time? CPU burst time is nothing but the time required for a process to be executed in the CPU. Okay, so now we have 4 processes, P0, P1, P2 and P3. P0 has arrived at 0th second, P1 has arrived at after P0, after P1 P2 has arrived, and after P2 P3 has arrived. So arrival time 0, 1, 2 and 3. P0 requires 5 milliseconds to execute, P1 requires 3 milliseconds to execute, P2 requires 8 milliseconds to execute and P3 requires 6 milliseconds to execute. Now we are going to draw a Gantt chart to calculate the average waiting time. So at the 0th second, P0 has arrived in the queue. So P0 will be given for execution. This P0 process will execute for 5 milliseconds and either terminate or go for input output operation. Next, P1 has arrived. So P1 will be given the CPU for execution. P1 requires 3 milliseconds. So this P1 will execute in the CPU for 3 milliseconds and it will terminate. Next, the CPU will become free. It will be given to process P2. P2 requires 8 milliseconds. P2 will execute for 8 milliseconds, terminate, and then the CPU will be given to process P3, which will execute for 6 milliseconds. So you can see over here, for the 0th milliseconds, P0 will be given for execution. P0 requires 5 milliseconds. So for 0 to 5 milliseconds, P0 will execute in the CPU. Then P0 will terminate and it will be given to process P1. P1 requires 3 milliseconds. So 5 plus 3, 8. So till the 8th millisecond, P1 will execute in the CPU. It will terminate. Next, P2 will be given for execution. P2 requires 8 milliseconds. So this 8 plus 8 is equal to 16. At the 16th millisecond, P3 will be given for execution, which requires 6 milliseconds. So 16 plus 6 is equal to 22. Okay. So now the average waiting time at the 0th milliseconds, P0 will be given for execution. So the waiting time of P0 is 0 milliseconds. 5 seconds are required for process P1 for execution. So 0 plus 5, the waiting time of P1 is 5. The waiting time of P2 is 8 and the waiting time of P3 is 16. So when we add this and divide it by 4, 4 is nothing but the number of processes, we will get 7.25 milliseconds. So for the given example, if we use the first come first serve algorithm, the overall processes will require 7.25 milliseconds average time. So I hope you have understood the first come first serve scheduling algorithm. It is the simplest scheduling algorithm. Next we are going to see the shortest job first scheduling algorithm, which is known as SJF. The job with the shortest burst time will get the CPU first. So the job which will require the lowest time of the CPU, that job will be given for the CPU for execution. The lesser the burst time, the sooner will the process get the CPU. It is the non-preemptive type of scheduling. Shortest job first is a scheduling algorithm in which the process with the shortest execution time should be selected for execution next. It significantly reduces the average waiting time for other processes awaiting execution. If two processes have the same burst time, then first come first serve is used to break the tie. So if in the ready queue there are two processes which are requiring the same amount of time for execution, in that case we are going to use the first come first serve scheduling algorithms. That is, we are going to see which process arrived first, and that process will be given for the execution. So to understand SJF better, we are going to see one example. Consider the following set of processes with the length of the CPU burst time given in milliseconds. So here we are using again 4 processes which have arrived at 0, 1, 2, 3, and the execution times are 5 milliseconds, 3 milliseconds, 8 milliseconds and 6 milliseconds respectively. So again we are going to draw a Gantt chart. So P1 will be given for execution first because this has the smallest execution time. So if we are going to compare all the execution times, the shortest job is P1. So we have allocated process P1 for execution first at 0th milliseconds. So P1 will execute for 3 milliseconds and terminate. Next, we are going to allocate process P0 because as compared to other processes, 5 is the lowest execution. So after 3, it is the process P0 which has the 5 milliseconds execution will be given to the CPU. Next will be P3. After 5, the next lowest is 6 milliseconds. So P3 will be given for execution and the remaining last is P2. So for 0th milliseconds, P1 will be given for execution. It will execute for 3 milliseconds and terminate. After that, the next execution time is 5. So 3 plus 5 is 8. So P3 process will be given for execution to the CPU at the 8th millisecond. After the P3 process execution is over, P2 process will be given for execution. So 14 plus 6 is equal to 22. So the average waiting time 0 milliseconds for P1, 3 milliseconds for P0, 8 milliseconds for P3 and 14 milliseconds for P2. So the average is 16.25 milliseconds. The SJF scheduling algorithm is optimal in that it gives the minimum average waiting time for a given set of processes. So shortest job first is the optimal scheduling algorithm. So I hope you have understood the SJF scheduling algorithm. Next we are going to see priority scheduling algorithm. In this algorithm, the priority will be assigned to each of the processes. Okay, so in this case now all the processes will be given certain number, that is it will be given certain priority. The higher the priority, the sooner will the process get the CPU. So the process with the highest priority will be given first for execution. If the priority of the two processes is same, then they will be scheduled according to the arrival time. So here again, if there are two processes having the same priorities, we are going to use the FCFS, that is the first come first serve arrival, see the arrival time to break the tie. Each process is assigned a priority. Process with the highest priority is to be executed first, and so on. Priorities are generally some fixed range of numbers such as 0 to 7 or 0 to 4095. So priority is nothing but a number assigned to a process. To understand priority scheduling algorithm perfectly, we are going to see one example. Consider the following set of processes assumed to have arrived at time 0 in the order P1, P2, P3, P4 and P5 with the length of the CPU burst time given in milliseconds. So a table is given to you wherein the burst time, that is how much time it will require the CPU, is given, and also the priorities have been given. Using priority scheduling, we would schedule these processes according to the following Gantt chart. So now we are going to draw the Gantt chart. So looking over here, 1 is the highest priority. Okay, so process P2 will be given first for execution. So at the 0th milliseconds, process P2 will be in the CPU for execution. It requires only 1 millisecond for execution. So next, the highest priority is 2. So process P5 will be given for execution. P5 will execute for 5 milliseconds. After that, we have priority 3. But now you can see in this example, there are two priorities having the same, there are two processes having the same priorities. Now in this case, we are going to use first come first serve. So process P1 has arrived first. So we are going to allocate P1 to the CPU for execution. P1 requires 10 milliseconds. It will execute for 10 milliseconds and terminate. And next we will take P3 for execution. P3 requires 2 milliseconds for execution. It will execute for 2 milliseconds and then terminate. And then the last one, next priority is 4, that is P4 will be executed for given for CPU for execution. It will execute for 1 milliseconds. So you can see over here at the 0th milliseconds it is P2. For P1 it will execute for 1 millisecond. It will be given next to P5. P5 requires 5 milliseconds. So 1 plus 5, 6. At the 6th millisecond, P1 will be given for execution. P1 requires 10. So 10 plus 6, 16. Then at the 16th millisecond, P3 will be given for execution. P3 requires 2 milliseconds. 16 plus 2, 18. So 18 milliseconds. And P4 requires 1. So 18 plus 1, 19. Okay. So the average waiting time will be 0 plus 1 plus 6 plus 16 plus 18 divided by 5, that is 8.2 milliseconds. So I hope you have understood this, how to calculate. Next we will see that how the priorities are defined. Priorities can be defined either internally or externally. So priorities again are of two types. One is internal priority and other is external priority. Internally defined priorities use some measurable quantities to compute the priority of a process. So priority is given to a process depending upon some internal criteria. Now what may be these internal criteria? For example, time limits, memory requirements, number of open files, and the ratio of average input output burst to average CPU burst have been used in computing priorities. So some criteria which are internal are used to give the internal priorities. The second type is external priorities. External priorities are set by criteria that are external to the operating system. So external priorities are given to a processes depending upon some external criteria that is outside the computer system, such as the importance of the process, the type and amount of funds being paid for computer use, the department sponsoring the work, and other political factors. Okay, so these are the two types of priorities. A major priority scheduling can be either preemptive or non-preemptive. When a process arrives at the ready queue, its priority is compared with the priority of the currently running process. A preemptive priority scheduling algorithm will preempt a CPU if the priority of the newly arrived process is higher than the priority of the currently running process. So if we are using the preemptive priority scheduling algorithm and currently a process with lower priority is being executed and a higher priority process arrives, then that process will be stopped and the higher priority process will be taken for execution. There can be a second type of priority scheduling. A non-preemptive priority scheduling algorithm will simply put the new process at the head of the ready queue. In this case, if a higher priority process arrives, it will not be taken for execution. Now, in this priority scheduling algorithm, we have some problem. A major problem with priority scheduling algorithms is indefinite blocking or starvation. Okay, so the major problem is starvation or indefinite blocking. Now what is starvation? Starvation is nothing but we want something and we are not getting it. A process that is ready to run but lacking the CPU can be considered blocked waiting for the CPU. A priority scheduling algorithm can leave some low priority processes waiting indefinitely for the CPU. Suppose one process is being higher priority process is being executed by the CPU and one lower priority process comes for execution. If we consider the preempted priority scheduling algorithm, in that case the process will not be given, the process with lower priority will not be given the CPU. So in this case the lower priority processes will never get the CPU for execution. This is known as the indefinite blocking or starvation. In a heavily loaded computer system, a steady stream of higher priority processes can prevent a low priority process from never getting the CPU. So now then, what is the solution? A solution to the problem of indefinite blockage of low priority processes is aging. Now what is this aging? Aging is a technique of gradually increasing the priority of a process that wait in the system for a long time. Okay. Now for example, if priorities range from 0 to 127, we could increment the priority of a waiting process by 1 every 15 seconds or every 15 minutes. Eventually, even a process where with an initial priority of 0 would have the highest priority in the system and would be executed. So understood what is aging? Aging is just like we grow up by years and years, we become old, we say it is aging. Similarly, we are going to increment the priority of a lower priority process one by one after every milliseconds, and at some point of time that process will have the highest priority. When that process will have the highest priority, it will be given to the CPU for execution. Okay, so the problem is indefinite blocking or starvation, and the solution to this problem is aging. In some systems like real-time systems, each process is well defined with its functionalities. It has a priority in the system according to the importance of its functionality. So I hope you have understood the priority scheduling algorithm. Next we are going to see round robin algorithm or round robin scheduling algorithm. For this, I would suggest you to go through the video which I had shared in the first chapter for time sharing operating systems. So this round robin scheduling algorithm is similar to time sharing operating system. It is the preemptive process scheduling algorithm. Each process is provided a fixed time to execute. It is called a quantum. So in this case, the CPU time is divided into time intervals, fixed time intervals. These time intervals are known as quantum. Once a process is executed for a given time period, it is preempted and other process executes for a given time period. So every process in the ready queue is given one time quantum. It will execute for that particular time quantum and then the CPU will shift to the next process. Round robin is the oldest, simpler scheduling algorithm. The name of this algorithm comes from the round robin principle, where each person gets an equal share of something in turn. It is mostly used for scheduling algorithms in multitasking. This algorithm method helps for starvation free execution of processes. Okay, so we have seen that starvation is the problem of priority scheduling algorithm. So if we use the round robin scheduling algorithm, that starvation problem will not come. Time slice should be minimum, which is assigned for a specific task to be processed. However, it may vary for different processes. It is a real time system which responds to the event within a specific time limit. Each process is assigned a fixed time in cyclic way. It is designed especially for the time sharing system. The ready queue is treated as a circular queue. Okay, so to implement this round robin scheduling algorithm, we are going to use the circular queue. To implement RR means round robin scheduling, we keep the ready queue as a FIFO queue of processes, that is first in first out. New processes are added to the tail of the ready queue. The CPU scheduler picks the first process from the ready queue, sets a timer to interrupt after one time quantum and dispatches the process. One of the two things will then happen. The process may have a CPU burst of less than one time quantum. In this case, the process itself will release the CPU. The scheduler will then proceed to the next process in the ready queue. Okay. Otherwise, if the CPU burst of the currently running process is longer than one time quantum, the timer will go off and will cause an interrupt to the operating system. A context switch will be executed and the process will be put at the tail of the ready queue. The CPU scheduler will then select the next process in the ready queue. The average waiting time under the round robin policy is long. So to understand the round robin policy or round robin scheduling algorithm, we will now see this example. Consider the following set of processes that arrive at time 0 with the length of the CPU burst time given in milliseconds. So here now we have three processes. Process P1 requires 24 milliseconds, P2 requires 3 milliseconds and P3 requires 3 milliseconds. For this example, we will take a time quantum of 4 milliseconds. Okay, so if we draw a Gantt chart, so first P1 has arrived. So P1 will be given the CPU for execution for 4 milliseconds. After 4 milliseconds, process P1 will be removed from the CPU because its time quantum has finished, and the next process, that is P2, will be given for execution. Okay, now you can see over here that the time quantum is of 4 milliseconds, but P2 requires only 3 milliseconds. So process P2 will execute for 3 milliseconds and it will release the CPU. So now the next 4 milliseconds will be given for process P3. Again here P3 requires 3 milliseconds but the time quantum is 4 milliseconds. So process P3 will execute for 3 milliseconds and next it will be, now all the processes are over, but P2 and P3 has finishes its execution and terminated. But P1 has still 20 milliseconds. First 4 milliseconds it has executed, but still it has remaining 20 milliseconds to execute. So remaining time quantums will be given to process P1 as you can see in the Gantt chart. Okay. So at the 0th milliseconds P1 will execute for 4 milliseconds. P2 requires 3 milliseconds, so 4 plus 3 7. Also P3 requires 3 milliseconds, so 7 plus 3 10. In this case P2 and P3 have finished its execution and have terminated. The remaining time slices or quantums will be given to process P1 till it finishes all the 24 milliseconds time. Okay, so the average waiting time is for P1 0 milliseconds waiting time, for process P2 4 milliseconds is the waiting time, and for process P3 7 is the waiting time. So the total average waiting time is 3.66 milliseconds. So I hope you have understood this. In the round robin scheduling algorithm, no process is allocated the CPU for more than one time quantum in a row. If a process CPU burst exceeds one time quantum, that process is preempted and is put back in the ready queue. The round robin scheduling algorithm is preemptive. Okay, so I hope you have understood the round robin scheduling algorithms. Next we shall see is multi-level queue scheduling. As you can see in the diagram, in this case the ready queue will be divided into separate queues. So in this given example you can see that the ready queues are separated into 5 different levels queues. That is why the name multi-level queue scheduling. Multiple queues are maintained for processes with common characteristics. Each queue can have its own scheduling algorithms. Priorities are assigned to each queue. Okay, so a multi-level queue scheduling algorithm partitions the ready queue into several separate queues, as you can see over here. The processes are permanently assigned to one queue, generally based on some property of the process such as memory size, process priority or process type. Each queue has its own scheduling algorithm. So as you can see in this example, there are 5 queues. First queue will hold all the system processes. Second queue will hold all the interactive processes. Third queue will hold all the interactive editing processes. Fourth queue will have all the batch processes, and last queue will have all the student processes. So in this case, the processes in the first queue, that is the system processes, will have the highest priority, and the processes in the last queue, that is the student processes, will have the lowest priority. So separate queues might be used for foreground and background processes. The foreground queue might be scheduled by an round robin algorithm, while the background queue is scheduled by an first come first serve algorithm. In addition, there must be scheduling between the queues, which is commonly implemented as a fixed priority preemptive scheduling. System processes, interactive editing processes, batch processes and student processes. No process in the batch queue. For example, now in this case, if there is a process in the batch queue, it will execute only if the above 3 queues are empty. Okay. If student processes will execute only if the above 4 queues are empty. Now in this, suppose for example, no process in the batch queue could run unless the queues for system processes, interactive processes and interactive editing processes were all empty. If an interactive editing process entered the ready queue while a batch process was running, the batch process will be preempted. Okay. Another possibility is to time slice between the queues. Each queue gets a certain portion of the CPU time where it can then schedule among the various processes in its queue. All processes have different requirements of processing as well. The various categories of processes can be interactive processes, non-interactive processes, CPU bound processes, input output bound processes, foreground processes and background processes. So now in this case the different levels mean that priority of each queue is different. So basically now in this multi-level queue scheduling we will have two types of scheduling. Scheduling among the queues, scheduling between the processes of the selected queues. Okay. Next, the last type of scheduling algorithm, multi-level feedback queue scheduling. In a multi-level queue scheduling algorithm, processes are permanently assigned to a queue on entry to the system processes and do not move between the queues. So in the previous algorithm, processes do not move between the queues. Multi-level feedback queue scheduling allows a process to move between queues. If a process uses too much CPU time, it will be moved to the lower priority queue. This scheme leaves input-output bound and interactive processes in the higher priority queues. Similarly, a process that waits too long in the lower priority queue may be moved to a higher priority queue. This form of aging prevents starvation. So you can see in the diagram the processes which execute for less than 8 milliseconds will be in the first queue. All the processes which requires time more than 8 milliseconds but less than 16 milliseconds will be put in the second queue, and all the processes which require more than 16 milliseconds will be put in the third queue. So now looking at this example, consider a multi-level feedback queue scheduler with 3 queues numbered from Q1, Q0, Q1 and Q2. So this is Q0, this is Q1 and this is Q2. The scheduler first executes all processes in Q0. Okay, so all processes in this queue will be executed first. Only when Q0 is empty, it will execute processes in Q1. So when this queue will be empty, this queue will be taken for execution. Similarly, processes in Q2 will only be executed if the above two queues, that is Q0 and Q1, are empty. A process that arrives for Q1 will preempt a process in Q2. So for example, now suppose a process in this third queue is being executing, but at the same time a process in this queue arrives, that is Q0 arrives. This process will be stopped and this process will be taken for execution. A process in Q1 will in turn be preempted by a process arriving for Q0. A process entering the ready queue is put in Q0. A process in Q0 is given a time quantum of 8 milliseconds. If it does not finish within this time, it is moved to the tail of Q1. If Q0 is empty, the process at the head of the Q1 is given a quantum of 16 milliseconds. If it does not complete, it is preempted and is put in Q2. Processes in Q2 are run on a first come first serve basis only when the above two queues, that is Q0 and Q1, are empty. This scheduling algorithm gives highest priority to any process with a CPU burst of 8 milliseconds or less. Such a process will quickly get the CPU, finish its CPU burst and go off to its next input output burst. So you have to understand that Here, in this case, a process which will require the CPU for less than 8 milliseconds will have the highest priority and will be executed first in the first queue. Processes that need more than 8 but less than 24 milliseconds are also served quickly, although with lower priority than shorter processes. Long processes automatically sync to queue 2 and are served in first come first serve order with any CPU cycles left over from Q0 and Q1. In multi-level feedback queue scheduling, categorization is done on the basis of the feedback obtained from process behavior. The priority is decided based on the past execution time. So I hope you have understood all the scheduling algorithms. Thank you.